Hi, everybody. My name is Ben Marchman from NatureLink, and I want to welcome you to the FireKeepers Global Conference, in which we'll gather for powerful conversations with cutting edge experts and thought leaders who will guide you to connect to your truest self and activate your natural gifts. This event is designed to reinstate the importance of carrying our soul directed vision back into our communities so that ourselves and our communities will flourish. Here you're invited to learn how to seek the guidance of your inner voice so that you can truly understand what it means to live life with purpose. I'm very excited today to be talking with Deb Matlock. Deb grew up in the mountains of Colorado and is deeply committed to nurturing the connection between people, animals, earth, and spirit. She has spent 25 years working as a professional, environmental, and humane educator and naturalist. Deb offers shamanic-style spiritual guidance, animal communication, nature connection workshops, and retreats through her business, Wild Rhythms. She is passionate about helping people find connection and deep spiritual meaning in their lives and in the places where they live. Deb holds a Master of Arts in Environmental Education from Prescott College and is pursuing her doctoral degree in Environmental Studies at Antioch University of New England. And her topic today is nature connection and empowered spirituality. So welcome, Deb.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to being here today and chatting with you all. So I appreciate the invitation.
Awesome. And Deb and I were talking before, she has also a pretty extensive bio. And so is there anything you wanted to tell the listeners and viewers about a little bit more about yourself before we go into the questions today?
Sure. You know, it's interesting. My professional path started out in environmental education. And that was basically taking people out, learning about the world, a little bit of nature connection activity kind of stuff in there. And what I found very quickly at a very young age in my career was that was so much more for people. People were having transformative experiences. People were digging into their own spiritual ideas and were having thoughts and ideas on these programs that they weren't planning to have. And so that's kind of what led me down the path of saying, how does the spirituality component fit into this? And so I've done a lot of research around that as well, personal experience and working with folks, but also I've done some research projects around people's spirituality and nature connection that have been really interesting, insightful, and it'll probably come out in our discussion today, some of what has come out of some of those things. So.
Awesome. Yeah, and as her and I were talking earlier, which is funny, Deb, I forgot to mention that to you too. I have a master's in environmental education as well, and used to be in that work when I was teaching. And that's kind of the focus on our talk today. The more you're out in nature and really helping people bond with spirit enters in some mysterious ways. And so I wanted to hear from you, if you want to explain to some of the listeners and viewers. Most of them on here know what nature is and possibly even nature connection, but some might not, or might have a different definition. So I just wanted to see what do you yourself mean by nature connection?
Yeah, that's a great question and a great place to start. Get the foundation out there. I think of nature, all of life. And so as an educator and a person who works in the field, one of the things I really strive to bring into the work is that you don't just kind of enter a trailhead and enter nature, or go to a wilderness area and enter nature. Nature is everywhere, and it's also us. And so when we talk about nature connection, there's a little bit of an interesting dichotomy, because it's hard for us as humans to have a conversation about that without it feeling like we're talking about us and nature. It's sort of a limit of the language. But to me, nature connection is seeing ourselves as part of this living world and knowing that we are intimately involved in it. One of the things that, I've been indoors doing programs in ballrooms at hotels where there was no window, and, saying we are all connected. Every one of us, who in here has a water bottle right now and is taking a sip of a drink, that's a nature connection piece. Or had breakfast this morning. All of that is us and the earth, becoming one in all ways. So to me, it's sort of just that's the larger philosophical. Then the other side of that nature connection is saying, okay, so I'm part of it. How do I let it be part of my life? And that could be little things like, I mean, I know here in Colorado where I live, I look at the weather and say, okay, what's the right time for the dog walk tomorrow? You know, is it a hot summer day? Do I need to go out at 5 in the morning? You know, is it a day that I need to try and make some time at lunch because it's so cold that that's going to be the warmest time of the day? You know, just looking at our lives and saying, all right, instead of trying to fight against it, how can I bring it in and make it be a part of my daily, weekly planning, when possible, of course. I mean, some days a dog walk has to happen when it has to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like your description, and it's helping people realize that, you know, we're much more a part of these rhythms in nature. And I love the rhythms in nature. Before I go on to that, my comment, rhythms in nature throughout the day. And like your business name is Wild Rhythms, which I love, by the way, which is
Thank you.
talking about, like helping people tap into the rhythms throughout the day, and like it's part of their mindset, like walking the dog, and that we're so much more a part of rhythms in nature than we thought. Yeah, I love that description. And it's funny that you and I both came into this work through environmental education in some sort of way. So it's kind of interesting. Small connections being made here.
Totally.
Yeah, and like, and I guess in your work, how do you help? If you want to expound a little bit on that, not really like the how-to question, but like in your work, you're helping people get to these levels, whether it's from deep nature connection all the way to shamanistic spirituality work, heart-centered work, and like not many people have a process. But in your case, like I wanted to see if you wanted to expound on like just your workshops and like your offerings and how you kind of fuse all these together.
Yeah, I think of them all, you know, I guess I'll back up. So I do one-on-one work with people. I'm a spiritual life coach, certified life coach, all the way over to, you know, large groups and presentations. And so there's a spectrum there of interaction, whether it's really deep and personal, or it's an hour-long presentation at a conference for a room of 500 people. You know, it's, in my mind, though, what I try to stay focused in is the umbrella of deep and sacred connection, and how can I be an instrument in that, you know, whether it's for a very short time with a large group or whatever, and how can I keep that focus in the work, regardless of if somebody is wanting just to be outside in a nature connection workshop because they're not comfortable going out alone, and their whole starting point is wanting to be outside and feeling a little safer in a group, or if somebody else may come and say, I've had many personally transformative experiences and I want to be outside so that I can really work on that. To me, it doesn't really matter. It's more about finding the people where they want to start and what it means to them to deepen their connection, what the spirituality part means to them if they're interested in exploring that. Knowing that my role is kind of just in service of this, you know, kind of helping to keep that focus on the deeper connections, and so that we can all live in that way of seeing ourselves so intimately a part of everything else.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I love that. And would you want to, before we go into these other questions, I'm curious how you work, or if there was a time in your life where you started seeing these spiritual connections within yourself, and like, if you remember like that time, or like, I guess if you can describe a little bit like your journey into your own spiritual connection and how you started seeing that with others.
Absolutely. So I guess to start that, I would have to go back to a very young childhood, where I was doing animal communication and talking to trees and birds and, you know, the insects in the backyard, and I didn't even think anything of it. It was just what I was doing. And I was also in a conversation with the universe, which I kind of now look at as conversation with the world of spirit. All of this was just it. It was just the way it was. And That lasted until my teenage years when I started to get the voices of the culture telling me that these are things that you do if you're not mentally stable. It can't be okay. You're not supposed to hear voices. Trees don't talk. Messages and dreams don't matter. All those things, which I decided as a very conscientious, well-behaved person in my teenage years, that I can't do those things anymore because it's not okay. So I tried this little shutdown process, late teens into 20s, which of course didn't really work that well. What really was happening is I started living kind of a double life, which was my socially accepted life, and then what was going on for me personally, which was these deep connections with the world around me and communications with, trees and gardens and animals and all of this stuff. And so finally, it was a process of recovery and letting my ego drop away because I was so afraid to even admit these things. And at the same time, knowing that this was too real, the experiences were too important, and they were really forming who I was and what I was doing in the world. So that was happening at the same time, and there I decided what I really wanted to do was work in environmental education, because I wanted to facilitate nature connection and people learning about the world to, appreciate and care for it. So as I'm going through my own personal, get over yourself, Deb, and just be who you are process, I started going out with people and seeing people having incredible experiences. I think of one time I was leading a hike in the Boulder, Colorado area about the natural history of black bears. It was a science-based, fact-based hike, and I turned around and there was a woman who had just tears streaming down her face. And my first thought was, oh gosh, did she hurt herself? And I didn't notice. And I turned around and she said to me, I had no idea I had so much in common with the bears that live around here. She said, we are not different. At which point I'm almost ready to cry because that's exactly what I wanted to have happen on these programs. But I started to realize that there was just so much power in education and power in the experiences that we have. And all of us, regardless of our belief systems or not, are dancing with the mystery of life and death. I mean, we can't really escape that. And so all of that together made me realize that this process, I couldn't just hold it to myself. I needed to share my experiences and then be available for others who are interested as well. Yeah,
I love that. And it definitely falls in line with the summit. Like, all these speakers, including yourself, have fallen into like this soul-directed work, and then seeing that happen with other people, and then leveraging that in a community. So that's a beautiful story. I love that. And so it's always neat that we can, like, if we can, like, go back and actually notice that moment sometimes in time, like when that has happened. So I love hearing people's stories to that question. Sometimes it's like, oh, I had a dream, and like I had this vision, but a lot of times it's like you're in the moment with somebody, and you really are having that I just call it the come to soul moment.
Yeah, that's a great name.
Come to spirit.
Yeah.
And like it's just powerful to hear that. So thanks for sharing that story.
Absolutely.
And I kind of went to another question, but I don't want to. I also want to move us forward a little bit. So, like with your personal spirituality in your work, and then how nature has impacted your life, I think you mentioned earlier, but also in your bio, about empowered spirituality.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious on that terminology and how you phrase it, because a lot of these listeners and viewers and everybody has a different way of how they view spirituality. And just to say that, because a lot of the summit, there's a lot of spiritual teachers, and some of the viewers and the listeners are might get confused, because sometimes people think spirituality means religion, and those are two very different things. You can be a religious person and be spiritual, but you can also be a non-religious person and be spiritual, because and everything that's living has spirits. And then you're like, well, what is it? And so I love how you said empower spirituality. So I just wanted to see if you wanted to expound on what that means to you.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I appreciate that question. I think it's something that I hold dear to my heart. Because I think spirituality, however we each define it, which it is, there's a plethora of definitions, and it's an important, I think, exercise for us to say, what does it mean to me? And to do that digging and that thinking and that Googling or whatever we need to do to sort of get to that definition. For myself, it's dancing with the mystery. That's kind of but one of the things that comes with that sense of spirituality is an empowered spirituality, is saying, my experiences, my journey, my beliefs that have come out of those experiences really matter. And it's not giving that power over to someone else. And I think that's such a vulnerable place for each of us, that we can, the extreme of that, of course, is like a cult or something where somebody is completely giving over all their power. And I think we need to be aware of that no matter what. We're working with a spiritual practitioner, we're going to a church, we're at a community potluck that's not even that focused. We need to know that power, if you will, is within us, and the experiences and our own unique interaction with the world and the mystery and the life around us. Nobody else can get in there and tell us what that's supposed to look like. Nobody else can tell us how to build that relationship and make this meaningful to us. And boy, I can tell you what, it gets my ire up when around, even if somebody says this is the only one way you can do this sort of thing. Like, well, except for if a person's experience says there's a different way to have that experience. So to me, empowered spirituality is saying, we are here as spiritual beings, in the world, like you just said so beautifully, is full of spirit. And that relationship it's nobody else's choice but ours. And if we find that in a religion, that's wonderful, and those belief systems, if that works for us, then that's part of the empowered spirituality. It can also be what takes somebody away from their empowered spirituality. So it really is about that individual journey, honoring our experiences and not letting somebody else tell us what it's supposed to look like. And I could be on that soapbox for a while, so I'll stop.
No, you got plenty of time if you want to keep going on that.
Well, I think that, I guess, to make sure I made the point, I think when we are dancing in our spiritual places, when we're asking those deep questions, what does my life mean? What does life mean? What's up with this whole life and death thing? Like, why do we have to even have the death piece? That piece that pushes so many of us to our knees during our lives so many times. We are asking things, and those are coming from heartfelt, vulnerable places. And that's a place where it's really easy for us to want answers. We just want that, sometimes that uncertainty and that pain and that stuff to go away. And that's where I think when spirituality can be disempowering, is when we think that all of that is outside of us, that all those answers are someplace else. Instead of trusting that connection maybe that somebody had with the tree that morning and how it meant something to them, and saying, wow, maybe that does mean something to me, and maybe that is valid. Of course it is.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And and like helping people figure out the difference. Like, like I'm a religious person, but at the same time, you can find spirit in other things and in other people. You and I were just talking about Michael Jaspe. I hope Michael's actually watching this, because he'll be smiling. But I remember one of his quotes that he mentioned at one of our intensives at Earth-Based Institute when I was a student there. And we're talking about these connections and how they're made and how everything has spirit. And he said, looking around the room and everybody has this connection piece already figured out, and we all have spirit, but just kind of expounding on that, saying like every living thing has spirit. And this is like a very indigenous way to present this. And every living organism on our planet has spirit, and we're all connected. We're all interconnected, like pretty much whether we like it or not, but we're connected. Like some people don't want to be connected to that otter over there, but you're connected through spirit because you both have spirit. And but all of us, animals, even plants and humans, we all have a deeper need. And this need, and we might not know what it is, but nature is the reflection of spirit, reflects back our deeper need. And like that's such a deep, visceral way to think about things. Like, we all have this need. And when we find that connection in spirit with something, the same need, it just reflected back to us in a nature form. And so like that's how powerful, spirit can be. It's really amazing. It reminds me of actually one of my other mentors who actually passed away recently. But he was reflecting on, I think it was actually a Joanna Macy quote. And I think he was just expounding off of that, saying like, we all have this big question of spirit and religion. And we might have another question like, where do I go after I die? We all have these big questions. And you're very lucky when you find the answer to that question, because that then becomes a time that you live that question. And like that is, but to me, that's what I think about as spirit. And like, it's beyond anything, it's like, it's embodiment. And this makes you realize how wholesome life really is. And we're just like a little, snap of the finger in this world. So that's pretty, just helping you expound on your soapbox there. We both can be on the soapbox for a long time.
That's right. Well, I think what you just said makes me think of inspiration is inspirited. It's like that is what you just said was like the perfect description of what it means to be inspired.
Yeah, exactly. And empowered. I love empowered spirituality, like not just spirituality, but like, you're empowered through this. And that's it's almost, we're both life coaches. So to me, like, that's integration and like getting somebody to really move forward. It's exciting. I love that terminology, how you use it. Another question is like, talking about your own personal spirituality, like how does nature play an impact with you in your personal spirituality?
Yeah, I think there's two pieces. One is I think I discovered my sense of spirituality outdoors, starting in my childhood, like I mentioned earlier. I grew up and we would camp for weeks every summer, and outside was just where I was all the time. And I think that was sort of where, when I was first forming those thoughts that I probably wouldn't even have called spirituality back, in elementary school or whatever, the questions of life and death and all of that, it was all outdoors. So to me, that was where things started to make sense. Even though I was raised in a church, for me, it was outside where I really felt the connection. And then coupled with that, when I sort of owning my path of speaking with the spirit world, and for lack of a better term, it's shamanic-style journey work, which is very multicultural, and from the dawn of humanity, it's kind of all across the board is this connection, either through rhythm and dance or, that sort of thing to connect with the spirit world. For me, a lot of that is also very nature-based. And so it kind of just pulls the earth realm together with the spirit realm. And it just, a blend that feels very natural and has been a lifelong process. And from that place also is where I get the guidance and the inspiration for the work that I do, whether or not the work is specifically spiritually focused. Like it could be, but it also could be a much more generalized program or something for a different group that was looking more for, let's get outside and connect to nature kind of stuff. So it just is very natural for me. And I've been very intrigued by all the religious traditions and all the cultures where nature is such a huge piece of the spirituality. I mean, I've spent a lot of years just for fun even reading about that and learning about that, because to me, it's kind of who we are as beings comes right out of that. And I think even our religions and our beliefs and all the flavors that go on top of it, where we come from is a piece of this amazing world. And where at least our bodies go back to.
Yeah, well, we're from nature. I love that.
Yeah.
I can't remember who quoted this, so I probably wouldn't say it, but it kind of relates. I hate saying a quote and then not quoting it. Doesn't really do it justice, but maybe you might know, or one of our viewers or listeners would email me after this. But it was everything in nature has spirit, but everything in spirit has nature. So it just kind of makes you kind of ask the question, like, okay, well, are they the same? And then, it was like ... but they're not the same. So it's like, what is that? This is just one of those other profound ways on how nature works with spirit and how spirit works with nature. At the same time, they're interconnected, but at the same time, they're not.
Yeah.
This makes you ask that question, like, well, what is it?
Yeah. That's a great mind-bending kind of quote that could take you in circles for hours, probably days and lifetimes, maybe.
Yeah. Another one of those big questions. But it really makes us want to live life in that connection piece. We stuck a lot in this like deep nature connection container here, and want to know a little bit more on like how you use your shamanistic work and the heart-centered work that you do. If you wanted to expound on that a little bit.
Yeah. Shamanic style work of speaking with the spirit world and nature communication and all that. Personally, I can answer that personally and professionally, I guess, if those even separate. Personally, it's all the time. It's like a constant relationship. I don't think of it, it's sort of my life path, is to be in this communication, be open to guidance, be trying my darn best to use myself and whatever the highest good might be that I can sort of glean from the universe and try to figure out. I mean, I'm a humble human. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, but you know, it's a commitment of mine to say, okay, I'm here. I'm using resources on the planet. You know, please just help me to do the most good that I can while I'm here. You know, and things that maybe I can't see, please help me see them. And so I sort of live in that space. That's really an important piece. Not always fun and glorious. There's certainly times like guidance is not what you want. You know, I don't want to hear that. Then professionally, I do shamanic style guidance work with people. I also do mentoring for people who want to learn or who feel a calling to that themselves and want to develop that further. And it's really important to me in that work that it's not prescriptive. There's not a one size fits all. I do the mentoring very individually, because what I have found over many years of doing this is that there's not one way that people access shamanic style journey space. There's not one way people interact with their helpers. There's not a step one, a step two, step three. It's very organic. And I've had a lot of people over the years that anytime I try to question that for myself, to think, oh, I could make this more, you know, like a curriculum, I realize I can't, because it's such a unique journey. Then I also use that work professionally. For example, if I'm going to go lead a workshop, you know, I may check in first with the land, you know, my helpers, and just say, is there anything I need to know for today? You know, please speak through me today as I'm out here leading this nature hike. You know, I don't know who's going to show up and what they're going to need, and it would be remiss for me to think that I can say this is what has to happen today. You know, the earth is alive and dynamic, and people's spiritual journeys are alive and dynamic. And so it's more about how can I put myself in the middle and just be of service to all of it. And one of the ways of doing that is just trying to keep myself as open as possible to hearing things that the human part of me would probably completely miss. You know, part of me worried about the emails I didn't answer, or the gas is low in my car, or whatever it is, you know. Just trying to keep that piece going. I don't know if that kind of answers what you were.
Yeah.
Rambled off a little bit there.
Yeah, just trying to ask these questions for also some of the viewers who might not be exposed to that kind of work, or maybe not even know what it is if this is their first time watching the summit. Yeah, and like I'm glad you explained that in that way, because I think a lot of us view, and a lot of people view shamanistic and shaman work as very differently than what it actually is. It can get like a bad rap, definitely. You and I were talking before the call. When I moved to Georgia, people were just labeling me as a shaman. Like, wow, you know, you listen really well. You must be a shaman. I'm like, no, I'm just listening to you. And so like it's just kind of like people want to put a label on things, and like, you know, that's where it comes from with that. And I was like, no, I don't call myself one of those, but I can tell you what one is, and here's what one is. And it's just kind of it's just a funny thing of how our culture views shamanistic work. And and you know, it's coming from the heart, like you said. It's like this deep listening to spirit, and it's calling in, you know, not just your animal guides, your totems, and your spiritual guides, but like even, you know, if you're a religious person or not, working with angels and other spirits, and it's amazing, and like how that can be worked, and if it's channeled, and like I like to always like think of shamans, and whenever you're channeling something like that, that anybody, I have a friend that says like if you think yourself as a healer or a deep listener, then you're a shaman, because he's just saying like, you know, that's what the role of that duty and what that person actually does, and how to bring people into that connection. I just liked your description of it on that, and but also how you're doing this with the community out where you are is really special. Like how you're blending both of these in. And that was kind of the next question, which is kind of touching base on a little bit of what you talked about. Like, I guess the question is like how, with your mentor clients and your deep nature connection workshops and your shamanistic role and your journey, like is like by using all this experiences, like how do you see yourself building community out there in Colorado?
Oh, that's a cool question. Yeah, I think to answer that first, I would have to say we have to define community a little bit.
Sure.
And it's funny because I was actually writing a blog this morning about this, you know, community being humans, but also the non-humans in our world, and the animals and the rivers and the trees and the bushes. And, you know, if we say to ourselves, community is all of this life, and then on whatever scale, whether it's my yard, my town, the earth, you know, the universe, you know, I think the building community part of it is stretching, is kind of introducing the idea of community being beyond human. And I know in a lot of workshops I've talked a lot about that. And what does it mean if we look at community and we really feel it as humans and instead of humans only? But within humans, I feel like there's also a need for that community to have these kind of conversations, which is why I really love what you're doing with the summit. You know, we are humans. We do talk to each other. We do learn from each other, and that's part of our human way. And so we need the communities to be able to talk and experience and share. And you know, I've been out with workshops with folks where people are wanting, you know, like a nature communication workshop, or we're actually talking to trees or whatever. People want the community with other people to be able to share about those experiences, be able to bounce their experiences off of somebody else's, and also feel validated because, oh, wait a minute, somebody else is having those experiences too, in whatever unique way. This isn't crazy. This is something that's happening. It is part of my experience. And we need that as well. And so I think there's a benefit to in-person community, but I also think that one of the things we can do with technology is have an extended community. You know, like I run a Facebook group, which is not all in person at all, ever. You know, it's people from all over the world actually, but it's talking about sacred connection. And some of the conversations we've had have been really wonderful. Somebody from Australia and somebody else from Dubai and somebody from the States. And, you know, I love that part of it because that community, you know, people are getting support from each other regardless. So I think that those are a few different ways, but I love the idea of exploring what does community mean, and in this situation, where is the focus?
Yeah, and when the focus meaning like your intention, right? That's your meaning.
Yeah, like when I'm working with my Facebook group, my focus there is to build community with the people, but also so that they can go out in their worlds and extend their sense of community. You know, so like me as a person facilitating that, you know, what is my focus for this presentation or this workshop, or, you know,
yeah,
so that I don't get all loosey-goosey with what I'm trying to talk about.
yeah, and yeah, I love your example of the Facebook group. You know, because like a lot of us like the face-to-face, or like we want it in person, but you know, building community through what's actually going on in our world. We're in this technology stage, whether we like it or not. You can still build community like that. It's amazing that the summit is bringing this many people together. It's just, to me, it's, pretty mind blowing, and like, but also shows you how needed these conversations are. And yeah, and it just all comes back to that simple thing that humans have always, our ancestors have done this work, and ancestors before them, since humans have been here. When they have something to present to their community, a community actually listens. And we're in, like you're saying, like we're in this world where we have to listen in different ways, or we probably might not be listening. And so there's all these people running around with like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I think this is my purpose, but like, no one's going to listen to me. So if you're a viewer or listener, that's why that quote at the beginning, which I think was just taken out of Proverbs, and which is like, a community without a vision will perish. It's not like people think that's really morbid, but like, if your community doesn't have vision, which means like collective thoughts and purpose, and you're not supporting that, then it'll collapse. It's just what's going to happen.
And I think with that vision piece is, this is again a little bit of a personal belief, but it feels terrible here. We all have our passions and issues that matter to us and the places that matter to us, and there is a need for all of it. I actually was talking with somebody who was working in dog rescue, who was saying, oh, this really matters to me and this is really important, but there's a bigger problem with environmental conservation in the world. And I said, there's a lot of work to do there too, and there are a lot of dogs who need you to follow your passion. Like we each have that piece of us, and if we inspire that and we find our empowered sense of spirituality within that, and we let those passions drive us, then it's like you said, then we all come together and those communities create the community vision together, coming from these deep, authentic places of what was put in my heart by God or the universe or whoever, whatever we're calling, what was put in my heart, what matters to me so much. And regardless of the voices around me telling me that it's ridiculous, if it's still there in that heart space, for Pete's sake, let's rock and roll with that,
Yeah. And if you're a viewer watching this, you'll see it from from an elder who was talking on the summit. He was saying like, if you're answering the call to soul, to your vision, and it's not scary and freaking you out and it's fearful and you think you're wrong, he had like this huge list. He's like, then that's not then you're not answering the right question.
Yeah.
Like if it's easy to answer.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, totally. Like, I love that. Like, it's like, yeah, it's easy to answer. I'm like, yeah, I'm going this way. I'm doing it. Like, and you feel like all of a sudden like really, really good about it. And there's no hesitancy, and it's probably not really what you're supposed to be doing. And so it just kind of makes people think a little bit, being like, well, what am I doing? And like, is that fearful? And does that somehow deep inside of me feel right, but still have these, but what if then that's actually what it is. If it makes you second guess and be like, well, what do others think about me? If you're really answering this call, like you might get judged because people see you change. Like you go through this transformation when you answer that call, and it's not scary. That's why you need the community to see you and to listen to you. It's so important.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel about what you're saying. Definitely relate to that.
Yeah, likewise. Terrifying moments for sure.
Yeah, and definitely. And I'm hoping our viewers and our listeners are resonating with that, because that can be a fearful thing, and it puts us like alone. And so that's why we really need to have our community backing us, because we're the only ones that know. And it was actually the last speaker who was saying this, Dr. Ryan. He was, what did he say? It was so great about the same conversation actually that you and I are finding ourselves in. He was saying, you're not the one that really knows what your essence is. Others do. I love that because like you need a community to tell you what you are in your essence because that's how you're carrying yourself on the outside and you don't know what that looks like. They're your mirror, like you were saying
Yeah.
earlier. I just love that comment. I'm like, yeah, you're exactly right. It's kind of like that old saying, like when your friends, you know, tell you, it's like, oh, I can see you doing this in life, and and your first thought is like, oh, I'm not going to be doing that, and then like 10 years later, you're doing that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's pretty similar how that works. It's so great.
And it can help us see our own gifts at times too.
Yeah, exactly. Your own
Yeah.
gifts and
What are
like
people saying? Hey, can you do this? Or you should talk to this guy, Ben, because he does, and you keep getting people coming to you saying, someone told me I should talk to you about this. You're like, oh, right. I mean, it's so important. We can be blind to sometimes, I think, our deepest passions and our most profound gifts sometimes because they are scary. It's easy to say, oh, I don't really see that. It's over there, I don't have to offer that. I can do something else.
Exactly. And I see so much of this in our work, and you see this too, probably when you're in nature, is as that's kind of how I feel as a guide and even a coach, like you're helping people see their reflection. Like, like nature is that mirror reflection, kind of like Michael Jospe was saying, like you're helping them just stand in front of that mirror and see what actually they are. Because we can do it through, it won't be done through dialogue. You can tell somebody over and over again and they're going to keep saying no. But then when you really help them to be immersed in that moment and really see what that feels like, and just listening and being still, it's not many steps and it sounds really complicated, but just being still, it's so important.
I agree.
You and I can both, once again, need to get off the soapbox there. So after all this, like weaving in with the deep nature connection and spirituality piece, which I love how this conversation has been going. One of the questions we had on here was like, what is the value of living a life that's deeply connected to the natural world and connected to our sense of personal, authentic, and empowered spirituality?
Yeah. I think personally that when I think of the value of that, it's like I can't be of the best service to the world around me. I can't be the clearest focus with my clients. I can't be the most available to the animals I care for if I am living totally against my own rhythms and my own patterns. And yes, in our Western culture, it is hard every day to say, what are my natural rhythms and how am I going to live within them? If I know what they are, then I can be aware of when I have to diverge a little bit, So if I know that I need to get up early and have my creative good brain time is first thing, or if somebody's a night owl and they know they need that, or if somebody knows that fall is a certain kind of season for them and that they want, it's when they feel a certain kind of creative energy, all of those things, if we can take the time and like you were saying, the be still and the, listening and the reflection of learning that about ourselves, it allows us that chance to say, okay, to whatever degree possible, how can I create my life around this? To whatever degree possible. I want to make sure that's clear because I think people can get very shut down. And they think, well, but I've got kids and a job and and I'm the same way. I mean, my days do not always look authentically, rhythmically connected as the way I need them, but when I know what it is that I need, and I know how I feel in certain seasons, certain weather and times of day, it does allow me to say to myself as I'm putting schedules together and things, okay, so how can I use some of that in so that I can be my best self, so that I can be most available to, at least for me, it's really important to say, how can I really live my life as an act of service in a way that's self-sustaining? But, to really do that, I've got to ask those questions. To really be in that empowered space of spirituality, I've got to be able to say, I know how I fit in. And I know what it feels like to be part of this earth. And I know how it feels to feel that even in traffic, like driving in traffic to Denver, still to say, I'm going to make sure that I'm noticing the clouds and the birds as I'm sitting at the stoplight. I'm just going to make that choice to say, Yes. Just little things like that. It doesn't have to be this huge life transformation. I mean, of course it can be, but those little things too, at least I personally think, help me stay grounded and focused, regardless.
I love that. It's a great way to view it. And it's like one of those sayings, it's kind of like almost like a routine. You can do it over and over again, but then sometimes you forget why you're doing it. And so like making sure it's done with intention. That's why that word intention is so huge. Because like, that if I was a viewer watching that and like hearing that, I'm like, okay, well, that's how, Deb does it, but like, how do I do it? Like, it's kind of like one of those things, like it totally has to be an embodiment, but done in an intentional way. Humans are just,
I think and the other piece, I had a client once ask me, she was saying, well, I can't really live in my own rhythms because I have kids. And I thought, well, what's more natural than parenting and having young? Like, can you look at your rhythms over a longer period of time? And like right now, she had 2 little kids. So right now, that's the rhythm, right? It doesn't mean in 5 years it's going to be the same rhythm, but that's a very natural rhythm to be in.
yeah.
Getting up when they get up and feeding them when they're hungry. And, it can feel sometimes, like something in our life is pulling us from ourselves. But if we look at it instead of this is complex web of being connected and interacting with all the living world, I don't know, for me personally, it takes some of the pressure off of, well, I didn't get up and immediately meditate and write in my journal for 20 minutes like I'm supposed, okay, so that didn't happen today. It doesn't mean I'm not connected today.
Exactly. And this all comes back to like you were saying earlier, just the self and listening. I was watching this talk by Jonathan Gustin. I don't know if he works with, founder of Purpose Guide Institute. And he's like, yeah, and if your rhythm changes, keep it the same, but just give it a different name. And I love
cool.
that. So it's like, he was talking about like this morning routine he had for like years. I think it was like a 20-minute thing, like in the mornings. That's really hard for somebody to just do over and over again. So if you can't do it, then like, you get out of rhythm and your day is like totally destroyed, or you get bored. That's what happens to me. I get bored.
Yeah.
But just do the same thing, give it a different name. Because if that rhythm is you're not going to be different. I mean, you might not go through a transformation, and that's okay. Or you might not be moving forward in life, but if you just keep doing the same thing and rename it, then it'll totally keep moving you forward.
Yeah.
I just love that. So he's given this example of he was doing this with, I think it was one of his clients, and she called it the morning miracle. And I love that. Just thinking how every day is a miracle, and I only have 20 minutes to really create the rhythm of my day, and that's enough.
Yeah.
Like just having that intention. And I just love that. So like I actually adopted that whole thing. I was like, okay, I'm calling mine that, 'cause I definitely can resonate with that, but maybe give it a different name because that's their name. But I just love that story, how we weave that in, and want to relate that to yours. Gosh, I could probably have like 20 more questions. We still got a couple more minutes. Is there anything you want to touch base on that I haven't asked about yet?
I think one piece that moves through all of this nature connection, empowered spirituality, what does that look like for each of us? I think one piece is kind of a checking the expectations at the door kind of mentality. And I know that I've come up against this, and I've had people I've worked with come up against it, where there's an expectation. It should look like this. It should be this kind of thing. I should do this 10 times a day. I should do this every week. I should. And I think that it's, for so many of us, there's so many shoulds already, that kind of just being open to, what does it feel like? What do I feel like I want this to look like? Or what would be inspiring to me? One of the things I encourage a lot of folks that I work with is to stop reading about rituals and stop for a while and just kind of like, I kind of got the idea from reading a Georgia O'Keeffe biography where she had gone to all these art trainings and she had a master's of fine arts, I think. And then she got out of all that and she got rid of all of her art stuff and got oatmeal paper and charcoal. And she said, okay, now that I have all this training, I need to go figure out who am I as an artist. And she just took her oatmeal paper and her charcoal and just kind of discovered for herself. And so I think that is kind of what is needed here as well, is that we need to just let ourselves explore and experiment and play and just feel this. And whether it comes away in a really formal structure for somebody or it's very loose and free and not at all structured, it's all okay. And that's where we get back to nobody can tell us how it has to look for us. You know, it's just, I don't have a life where I can get up and meditate in the morning. It's just, I have too many animals and too much happens early in the morning around here. It doesn't mean that it's wrong, but if I were to listen to all the voices saying, start my day that way, I could easily start to feel badly about my experience and my sense of connection. And so I just would say to folks, you know, it's our journey, it's our own things. And so we've got to just be available for letting it be. You know, the shoulds don't really have a whole big place here, and the expectations can really trip us up.
Yeah, it's well said, and simply said. We can, you know, you can keep saying it over and over again. Just being available for let it be. I like how you said that.
Yeah.
And kind of just leave it as that, because everybody has their own way of being available and listening and just being still.
Yeah.
I can definitely relate myself to Georgia O'Keeffe over the past 10 years. It's like, I'm going to do this and this and this and this. And it's just, you kind of have, eventually you'll start having that thought being like, okay, then what are you going to be doing? I'm like, I don't know. So I'm going to keep doing this. And then eventually this voice gets stronger and stronger, like, okay.
Yeah. And then there's always more to learn. We're never good enough to do it. You know, I mean, yeah, I'm a fan of nature connection workshops. I offer them, but I can tell you what, we can all walk right outside our door right now and say, all right, I'm just going to look around and try to see something I haven't seen before. You know, and that's transformation. It's right there at our fingertips. It's available, you know, and it can lead us down all kinds of paths if we want it to, or if our mind is open at that moment, you know.
Yeah, and that word transformation, gosh, we could have a whole other hour talking about what that word means. And to say it, I guess, short, I think a lot of people are starting to realize that this word transformation is not just from one event. You know, you have something happen in your whole life. Your whole entire life is a transformation. Like I can just relate to that. Like, you know, you go through all these phases. And, you know, now I'm having kids. That's a totally different transformation of yourself. Just being a father for me. Not saying that they're a nightmare. They're the sweetest and coolest kids I know. But just you learn life through a different way. That can be in some sort of way of transformation, a change.
Right.
But, and so like we're having, as we're talking right now, and people watching, we're all having these transformations happening all day long. And different ones. And so like this requires that deep listening, like you're saying. And I have to write that down. That's a good one-liner, being available and having the availability to let it be. I love that. Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour, but is there any like, I'm not gonna say advice, but is there any like guidance or like words of wisdom you want to leave with everybody?
No, I think kind of going back to what I was just saying about just, you know, like if we all, myself included, you know, after this conversation, I mean, I really enjoyed this. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope our paths cross in person at some point, you know, and, you know, just to go outside and just look around and say, okay, let me find something I haven't seen before. Let me just take a moment with whatever that is and just say, hey, you know, here we are. We're part of the same community. We're in the same place. We're doing this right here within whatever it is, 6 feet of each other. You know, we're just kind of letting ourselves feel that into our bodies, and just what does that mean? Just to say that one more level of connection, whether it's a bird, a blade of grass, the neighbor walking down the street, it's just, I think it can just be so empowering and so fun because I know that there's so much of my community so many I haven't met yet. You know, whether it's an aunt that's right outside my front door that I just have never seen, you know, or a person down the road. Just letting ourselves just say, okay, we are part of this. We are on this, in this, and around this all together.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'm going to probably ask a common question, which some viewers or listeners might ask is, okay, well, I'm hearing this, but I live in a condo in a city. And so what would you, what would you recommend on that piece?
I have a good friend.
Go ahead.
I have a good friend who grew up in the Bronx, and she became a park ranger and a wildlife biologist, and she fell in love with the world by looking at the insects in her stairwell. I would say a condo in a city is just as much nature as a cabin in the woods. You know, there are dandelions growing in sidewalk cracks in the middle of parking lots all over the place. There are birds nesting in trees. There are clouds moving across the sky. There are patterns from the sun filtering down on our windows. We literally are in it all the time. And so a condo in a city, maybe it just means you have a higher window viewpoint and you actually get to look out and see the tops of birds instead of the bottoms of birds that somebody else might. But it's everywhere. Nature is us, and it's not something we go visit. It's just walking out our door, wherever our door is, and whatever we are walking into, and saying, what have I not noticed before? And what does it mean to me to notice it?
Yeah, I love that. And I honestly notice more in cities, but also have clients live in cities and they start to notice things that you wouldn't even see like in the wild. You know, like hawks nailing a squirrel right in front of people, and you know, and then like people just walking by, like not even seeing it, because like you're just taking the.
Yeah.
We were talking about Josh Lane earlier, who's one of the speakers, who's a good friend of mine and mentor, and that peripheral view, you know, the owl eyes, and like seeing how much you can walk, like, you know, you're walking on a sidewalk, it definitely looks like a lot of cars and you're in a park, but what's going on over here? Because you might be seeing something else. And so I'm glad you expand on that, because that might be like a question people might have from that. And gosh, there's so many examples, but I don't want to go over the hour here.
Yeah.
And we still have a couple of minutes too. And there could be something we didn't touch base on, or that might have been enough for you. So I just wanted to check in with that.
You know, nothing's coming directly to mind at this moment, unless there's something that you think the viewers have asked in other sessions or things that.
Yeah, I just want to let you get all the information out. Is there a short meditation or visual you wanted to share with anybody before we all head out?
Yeah, I think going back to that, you know, taking that time to go out and kind of closing eyes, opening eyes, whatever feels natural, but then just saying, I'm open. Letting that, just, you know, breathing that in and kind of feeling that just go through the whole body. I am open. You know, and what do I hear birds? Do I see the clouds? Do I feel the breeze? What does it open bring to us? I think that's a simple little thing that we can spend hours doing or seconds doing. You know, it can fit in when we're in line at the Department of Motor Vehicles, and it can be when we've had a whole day out in a park somewhere. Just to say, you know, I'm here and I'm just part of it. I feel myself as a piece of it, and I'm open. I'm open to just receiving and interacting and communicating. And then just letting expectations go and just saying, I don't have any idea what will or won't happen here. That doesn't even matter. Just doing it. And then if things happen, saying, okay, that's part of my experience now. Let me file that in my experience box and know that it has importance and value. Even if I have voices in my culture or family or whatever telling me it doesn't. Yeah.
I really like that. I think that's a good way to close. And yeah, and for the viewers and listeners, if you don't have seconds in the day to do that, then you're probably too busy. Just going to throw that out there. Yeah, it's like almost like a slight surrendering that's just building over time. I really like how you phrased that.
I'm going to walk and get my mail and just be open.
Yeah,
Who am I going to meet on the way here? Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, before we close out, Deb, I did want to have some time too for you to talk about your free gift, because for the viewers and listeners, and just to let everybody know, the free gifts are found next to the bio, like right underneath each speaker's bio, you'll see the free gift URL if you're looking for Deb's in particular.
Excellent. So I will be in the next probably month, I'm going to be offering an online seminar. Oops, I've got barking dogs in the background. They're excited about this seminar. I'll be offering an online seminar about finding our own wild rhythms and how to really, activities and exercises to really dig into how do we find out what those are for ourselves so that we can weave those into our days and our planning and our lives. And so there's a sign up for the email list to be notified when that seminar is available. And I'm really looking forward to doing that. I've met many times live, and I'm looking forward to doing it, as we were talking earlier, in an extended community of folks that are not always in person.
Wow, sounds amazing. I'll probably be signing up for that too.
It'd be fun, yeah.
We can always be
Please
learning. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Deb. I really appreciate today, and this has been wonderful talking with you. And I hope that everybody watching this will find time in the day to be doing simple things like as what you're talking about, and taking this wisdom and not really, trying to act right away. Just really listen to it and seeing what it provides for them. So.
Yeah. Likewise, and thank you so much for this invitation and so much for all of your hard work on this summit. I'm really excited to listen to the speakers, and I'm looking forward to participating that way as well. So
yeah, thank you so much. It's been fun. All right, well, have a great day, Deb. I really appreciate it.
You bet. You too. Thank you.